Hello, Podcast Village. Welcome to episode 4 of the Young Ignited Minds Foundation's ongoing talk series, Sati Talks. Today, we are here to talk about colorism, racism, and all the dots in between.
It's going to be educational, not just for you, but for us too. We are about to explore a lot of varied opinions and respect. Is it a taboo topic?
I think more than a taboo, it is considered extremely normal, like the household fairer tips we get from aunties, or calling a friend Kalu and saying things like "तू तो अंधेरे में दिखता ही नहीं होगा." Why is it that discrimination exists within the same race as well? Why, as a community, are we so colorblind to colorism?
I agree. I find fairness screams unfair and not so lovely. I mean, I get it that they have changed their name, but it's still a fairness scream no matter what they say.
It's unfortunate that we had to wait for a whole public outcry over the death of George Floyd just to, understand the wrongs within our own community.
It's just that हमें तो पहले कोई seriously लेता ही नहीं था ना.
Exactly. Society खुद को seriously नहीं लेता. Nobody understands what colorism even is or why it's so wrong.
I agree. And also, it's so prevalent in our society that actresses like Priyanka Chopra and Kajol have admitted to bleaching their skin in order to lighten their skin color.
Exactly. And then they've gone down to say that it was one of the biggest regrets of their career.
I think we need to start the discussion with the question, what exactly is colorism?
Colorism is discrimination based on skin color, where a prejudice against the dark-skinned people is formed, usually by the people of the same race.
And where did it even begin? Like, why would we target communities within our own country?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it dates back to European colonialism and the caste system in the Persian and Mughal era.
Yes, from what I have read, colorism in India was fueled due to events under the British colonial rule, where British officials consistently demeaned dark skinned Indians and favored lighter skinned Indians for jobs over dark skinned Indians.
I guess that the remnants of the British tactics that exacerbated colorism still remain very prevalent in the Indian society that we know and live in today.
I think the concept of fairness screams existing only, just like Avanti ma'am said, is an example enough.
Well, in the Bollywood industry, a majority of actors and actresses hired are light skinned, and actresses are often photoshopped to look lighter. Though this was discussed in the movie Bala kind of messed up royally because they took a lighter skinned actress and toned her skin tone down with makeup.
अपने पैर पे खुद कुल्हाड़ी मारना, wow, defeating their own purpose to the very next level.
Don't you know that the entire industry is brilliant at defeating their own purpose? I mean, look at Hindustan Unilever, right? They decided to drop the fair from Fair and Lovely. Yes, but they changed it to Glow and Lovely. That still remains so tone deaf.
Our society has glorified being fair since ages, be it weddings, ordinary life, or the movie business. People with dusky skin very often face discrimination or the constant pressure of looking good or fair.
In the state of Maharashtra, a group of young tribal women trained to be fright proof through a government scholarship program that aimed to empower women. However, the program seems to have actually disempowered them, as the majority of girls were dark skinned. They were denied employment due to their darker skin tone.
The issue here is not just the psychological problems this poses, but that these fairness creams have some very harmful chemicals like steroids, heavy metals such as lead, mercury, arsenic, etc., that are extremely harmful even if used in very small proportions.
That's a really good point. But you know what? I'd like to segue into another aspect right now. Since we're talking about colorism at a very opportune time with the Black Lives Matter movement, we see Indians trending the hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag BLM. But is that not extremely hypocritical?
I agree. In this very country, we find continuous attack on black people. I would love it if we discussed how Indians see black people or what stereotypes we Indians have of them.
Blacks still stereotyped as drug peddlers, savages, and cannibals in Indian psyche. Plus, there is no one to be educated about why say all lives matter is wrong terminology or why the word N should not be used even in passing.
Yup. For example, the attack on African nationals in Greater Noida, though it attracted a large amount of attention, not much has changed. Indian students are still as biased towards the black community as they used to be.
There is a Malayalam film called Abrahaminde Santatikal, The Sons of Abraham, in which the vicious criminal villains were all black African Americans, and of course, they were decimated by the Malayali superhero.
But one second, there isn't a community of Africans in Kerala. So does this mean that this filmmaker fictionalized this in order for racism to be blatantly played out?
This is not a state atrocity. This is society. This is people, artists, filmmakers, actors, writers, South Indians who are mocked by North Indians for their dark skin, in turns humiliating black people for the very same reason. It's like falling into a borewell with no bottom.
Even the uninformed vocabulary used by society in turn is a very blatant microaggression.
Yes, finally, racial microaggressions. They affect the mental well being of a person so blatantly as he faces behavioral insults towards the color of his skin, something he was born with and literally cannot change. We study this in biology, right? That there are 64 human skin colors. Why do we have to differentiate between the same? These microaggressions obviously end up promoting racism, the very racism that is so engraved into our society. This furthers a racial culture.
There are finally conversations around the systematic and institutional racism that exists in our country. It is very important to introspect and check our privilege every day. When we start looking for stories, it comes barely as a surprise that their voices are muffled amongst the clamor of noises.
As we look even closer and locate the northeastern women in this matrix, we realize that their daily struggles in the mainland are barely recorded.
Even in the midst of a global pandemic, racism by this mainland continues. While these outbursts are blatant representations of skewed power relations, they are part of a larger, more permanent structure which has existed for much longer. The disregard for the plight that the northeastern community faces is reflected in the lack of redressal mechanisms or even the institutional acknowledgement of their struggles.
These instances of casual racism are not isolated instances. It has led to systemic racism and institutionalized validation of such practices. It is firmly rooted in a larger structure which has been created by lopsided power relations, a structure which makes abuse a daily affair for several northeastern women.
Indian women's team footballer Dagmay Grace, who hails from Manipur, also spoke out against racism in general and during COVID 19 times, stating that she has been called names chinky, a derogatory racist word that is often used for northeastern people.
There is no respect for them. Even reports of violence against doctors who are laying down their selfless lives for us during the pandemics we are in the midst of.
Speaking of doctors, we live in an era today where we either glorify or incriminate doctors. There's no in between. Despite the fact that they are laying their lives down for us each and every day, a doctor doesn't see caste, creed, race, gender. A doctor doesn't see any of that. A doctor just wants to heal. We actually have with us today an audio testament by a young doctor physician from the Northeast, which for obvious reasons we shall be keeping anonymous. After which I genuinely feel like the topic will be brought to even more light. So these are her words. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out to give us some first person insight as to how different your perception of life is from ours, how varied your experiences are. As a doctor now, do you feel that you are seen differently in your white coat because of where you belong to, and does it have an effect on your mental health?
See, I don't know, okay, where to start because we have been like I won't say we, but I have been facing many like comments regarding my looks, outside Northeast before coronavirus and all. That people calling me names like like Chow Mein, Chinese, whatever. But we have always been ignoring that, no. But then during those time like March, when all this pandemic thing started, when there was no total lockdown, like when we move outside, people will call us coronavirus directly, like on their face. even kids, like small kids walking on the streets, would point their finger at us and would laugh at us, like, coronavirus, when we go for posting. So like that kind of is really annoying sometimes, like when it keeps happening again and again. During those lockdown days, like we had to go outside to buy groceries and all, and people would just stare at us, like, and like with those very different look, because we look kind of different in our features. So like that kind of is bad. So like during corona though, like initial days, it had a very bad impact on us because of our face also. And then people at MG in the initial stage, they will just call us out names like coronavirus, and all. They would point and laugh at us and all. So like people, those who are emotionally very like weak, like those who can't, those who are very weak and those who can't emotionally, how to say, like, balance their mind or anything, for them is very bad. Like they overthink, they get depressed because they are already very far from their homes, and then all these things happening. And then some of my friends were not allowed to stay in their rent because of our looks, and some were not allowed to buy groceries because we look, and according to them, we look like Chinese. So like this all really have a very bad impact on us. So I don't know, like, yeah, this is, we have been seeing lots and lots and lots and lots of videos also regarding this. But and then many people have already talked about this issue also, but I don't seem to see any kind of changes. People seem to, and I feel like even small kids are being racist in some places. But I feel like these things, like, like if there is a proper communication and all, I think it will be decreasing. But then for some people, like, it's very sad, and those who are emotionally very weak, for them it's very hard to cope up with the environment they are staying in. It's very hard sometimes to even go out of their house. So racism is not good. Yeah, it's not good.
I told you guys, this was gonna hit hard.
It's unfortunate to see that people who are so literate are so uncivilized and backward at the same time.
Exactly. This is just heartbreaking. I hope no one has to go through it.
Wow. The effects of colorism and racism on mental health are grossly understated. But how can we prevent this in the future?
The first step is to examine our own biases and see how it originated. See, when we have relatives telling us that having fairer skin would get us better husbands, then we have to see what experiences they went through to understand why this bias is there and what reinforces the biases, stereotypes, and prejudices within them.
I think another important thing to do is to validate the experiences of those who have faced colorism and racism. We cannot turn a blind eye towards the oppression that is prevalent in our society. Rather, we should try to learn and acknowledge the fact that it exists and see how it affects our society.
I agree. It is ignorant of us to think that we live in a post-racial society where people don't see color. We must acknowledge that racism exists in order to solve it. We must acknowledge we don't treat the Northeastern Indian with the same respect in order to solve that.
Yes. And I think one part of that is to also call out racist jokes or statements. We need to let people know that racist comments are not okay. We don't address it a lot. We don't address taboo topics. We don't understand it. We can also alternatively be polite about it and say things that, hey, listen, that joke does not make sense to me. Could you explain that? Or, just hinting towards it, saying, you may be kidding, but this is what it means when you say that type of thing. We need to stop being afraid of having this conversation with, even if it is our loved ones, our colleagues, our friends, because these little things that we ignore are what normalizes biases.
Very true. I feel that whenever a person does not say anything or just laughs it off, that person is supporting racism in a way. So I also feel that it should be a part of our education. School should teach how racism originated and why it still exists. Also teaching a person empathy as to how that person would feel were that person to be in the same situation would go a long way.
It all comes down to love and respect for everyone. I mean, no matter how hard 2020 has been, it has shown the issues that plague our society and has made us more aware. And I hope we come out of this more empathetic and more kind.
Thank you for joining us for another inspiring conversation at Sarthi Talks, where the only colorism we'll stand by are probably the colors of the rainbow. Shout out to Pride Month. We hope that this leaves you a lot more attuned to the lives that matter in our own country. May we all continue to be the change. And don't forget to wash your hands. Stay safe, stay happy. This is YMF signing off. Thank you.